English Campfire.
Imagine you're sitting on the frozen metal hood of a car and it's like 5.43 in the morning.
Oh, that sounds rough.
Right. You don't have a winter coat. The wind is just whipping off the ocean, and you're drinking this lukewarm 3-week-old water out of a crushed plastic bottle.
So, by all logical metrics, you should be completely miserable.
Exactly. Completely miserable. But instead, you are staring at an empty horizon, and you realize it is literally the best moment of your entire year.
Yeah, that is such a universal human experience.
It really is. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the exact psychological and honestly grammatical reasons why those unplanned moments carry so much absolute magic.
That sudden midnight urge to just break your routine.
Yeah.
To throw the itinerary out the window and just see what happens when you stop trying to control every variable of your life.
And that feeling is basically the engine of our deep dive today. We're unpacking this really fascinating piece of source material that pulls off this incredible magic trick.
It really does.
Because on the surface, it tells this deeply nostalgic, highly cinematic, coming-of-age story about a midnight road trip. It's about these two college friends. Let's call them Zara and Ben.
But beneath that narrative, the text is actually functioning as a masterclass in English grammar.
Which I know, on the surface, that sounds like oil and water. Grammar and midnight road trips.
Yeah, because we are totally trained to think of grammar as these dry, dusty rules, like stuff buried in a textbook you haven't opened since high school.
Totally. But this source material completely proves otherwise. So we're going to follow Zara and Ben chronologically through their night, but we'll be stopping along the way to uncover the hidden grammatical architecture holding their story together.
Right. We're looking at how native speakers use the actual toolkit of narrative tenses to build tension.
Yes, to create atmosphere and actually deliver emotional weight to the reader.
We are essentially opening up the hood of the English language to see how the engine actually fires. We want to understand why certain sentences make your heart race while others, just make you feel completely at peace.
I love that. Let's jump right into the pressure cooker then. It's Wednesday night, 11:45 p.m.
The apartment scene.
Yeah. The author sets the scene by giving us the layout of their apartment. We learn that Zara has been staring at her laptop for 3 hours, and Ben is just lying on the floor with his headphones on.
It's very stagnant.
Exactly. The room is just heavy. And then, out of nowhere, Zara breaks the silence and says, "Let's go to the beach right now."
And the grammar in this opening paragraph is doing an immense amount of psychological heavy lifting. Like the phrase "had been staring" is the past perfect continuous tense.
When I was reading that, a very specific image popped into my head. It feels like shaking up a bottle of soda.
Oh, wow. I like that analogy.
Right, because if the author had just written, Zara stared at her laptop, it would feel entirely flat. It's just a single, isolated action.
Right. There's no momentum.
Yeah, but had been staring gives you that physical carbonation building up inside the bottle. You really feel the 3 hours of dead-end frustration.
The exhaustion, the claustrophobia.
Yes, all of it pushing against the cap until she finally pops it and says, "Let's go."
That is actually the perfect way to visualize the past perfect continuous. Storytellers don't use it just to document time. They use it to document the friction leading up to a breaking point.
It makes the action feel earned.
Exactly. It gives the eventual action a sense of relief. And then we have this contrasting energy from Ben. The text says he was lying on the floor. That's our past continuous tense.
It's kind of like the background scenery of a stage play, right?
Precisely. It establishes the environment that was already in motion before the catalyst even occurred.
So it sets the mood.
Yeah. By contrasting Zara's tense, building pressure with Ben's static ongoing state, the author paints this vivid picture of a stagnant room that just desperately needs to be disrupted.
Okay, I do want to push back on a specific vocabulary choice the author makes here, though. The text explicitly describes Zara's sudden decision as impulsive.
Okay, yeah.
Honestly, when I hear the word impulsive, I instantly associate it with a flaw. I mean, I think of making an impulsive purchase you really can't afford.
Or sending an impulsive text message you immediately regret.
Exactly. So is the author implying she's making a huge mistake by dragging them out into the night?
It's super easy to map our own negative biases onto that word.
Yeah.
However, the source material draws a really deliberate boundary around how impulsive is functioning in this specific narrative.
Okay, how so?
Well, rather than implying recklessness or a lack of care, The text frames impulsivity here as a pure burst of kinetic energy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's the act of moving before your conscious brain can talk you out of a good idea. In context of a stagnant Wednesday night, her impulsivity isn't a mistake. It's the necessary spark to start the fire.
Honestly, it's the only way they're ever going to leave that apartment. Which actually brings us to 12:10 a.m. and this incredibly jarring shift in the story. You go from the quiet pressure of the living room to the frantic, chaotic energy of them actually running out the door.
They're riding that initial burst of kinetic energy before it fades.
Right. They leave without bags, they don't check the weather, and they just jump into a car with only half a tank of gas.
Which is wild.
It is, but the author doesn't just let us ride the action. Right in the middle of them running out the door, the text drops in this single, isolating sentence. It says, she had never done anything like this before.
Ah, yes. That is the past perfect tense.
And reading it felt exactly like a movie director suddenly pausing the film, executing a smash cut to a flashback of her entire boring, predictable life, and then snapping us right back to the real-time scramble of finding her car keys.
Yeah, storytellers use the past perfect specifically to act as a temporal anchor. In the English toolkit, it's the mechanism we use to travel further backward from a past moment. It allows the writer to inject decades of character depth into a single sentence without bogging down the pacing with pages of exposition.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We instantly understand the gravity of her running out the door because we understand her baseline.
That makes a lot of sense. And right after that grammatical flashback, the author starts doing this really intricate thing with the timeline. I noticed the text says, while Zara was putting on her shoes, Ben had looked up the beach on his phone.
Right.
Can we break down why those two distinct tenses are jammed together in the exact same sentence?
Definitely. We are looking at a technique called layering time. Was putting is the past continuous. It sets the ongoing immediate scene she is actively struggling with her laces.
Got it.
But had looked up is the past perfect. It implies an action that was already completed by the time she was doing her ongoing action.
So it's not that they are doing it at the exact same millisecond. It's that the author is showing us a messy, overlapping reality.
Exactly. If the text just used the simple past, it would be like, Zara put on her shoes, Ben looked at his phone, they left the apartment.
Ugh, yeah, that would completely ruin the chaotic vibe of the departure.
It would sound totally sterile, like a timeline entered into a police report. Life doesn't happen in a neat, sequential, one-at-a-time order. Layering tenses allows the text to mimic the chaotic, three-dimensional reality of actual human experience.
Okay, that makes so much sense. So they survive the chaotic departure. The apartment door slams shut, the car starts, and suddenly the entire psychological landscape shifts.
We enter the drive.
Yes, we enter the liminal space of the drive. It is now between 1:00 a.m. and 3:15 a.m. The adrenaline of leaving has totally worn off.
Yeah, reality sets in.
The gas gauge drops below a quarter tank. The road is empty. The radio is playing this unnamed but super familiar 90s song.
Liminal is the perfect word here, by the way. They are suspended between the reality they left behind and a destination they haven't actually reached yet. And the author's grammatical choices shift dramatically to mirror that exact psychological suspension.
I mean, think about the last time you were on an empty highway at 2 a.m. The world just feels entirely different.
It really does.
The glow of the dashboard is literally the only light. The hum of the tires becomes hypnotic. And the author taps into that universal memory by using the past continuous again. The road was empty. The radio was playing.
Just like Ben lying on the floor in the first scene, the author is using the past continuous to construct an environment, not an event. It paints the static backdrop of the journey.
Okay.
But then the text hits us with a variation. The author writes, they had been driving for an hour. We are back to the past perfect continuous.
But wait, it doesn't feel like a soda bottle shaking up this time.
No, because here it is being used specifically to communicate duration.
Yeah.
The author wants the reader to physically feel the weight of the time that has passed.
Oh, I see.
It emphasizes the silence, the fatigue, the shared reality of occupying a tiny metal box in the pitch black for 60 consecutive minutes.
You definitely start to feel the exhaustion right alongside the characters. But that hypnotic trance gets broken at exactly 1:47 a.m. They pull into a brightly lit gas station.
Yes.
And this is where I honestly got a little hung up on the narrative choices. The author introduces this gas station attendant named Ray.
Right.
And Ray tells them the beach is beautiful at sunrise and that they should look out for dolphins. Zara observes that Ray seemed like he'd seen a lot. But my question is, why dedicate a whole paragraph to a stranger they will literally never interact with again?
From a purely structural standpoint, interactions with strangers on a road trip serve a very specific function.
Yeah.
Grammatically, it gives the author a seamless opportunity to use reported speech.
Like Ray told them the beach was beautiful.
Yes, and they should look out for dolphins.
Okay, but it has to be more than just an excuse to flex a grammar rule, right?
It is, absolutely. It anchors the story in a wider world. Zara's observation about Ray having seen a lot reminds us that while Zara and Ben are on this impulsive adventure, they are passing through spaces where other people are just living their daily, mundane lives.
They're interacting with the ghosts of the night shift.
Exactly. But most importantly, Ray plants a narrative seed. By mentioning the dolphins, he hands the characters and the reader a very specific expectation for the climax of the story.
Oh, he turns a vague location into a concrete destination.
Right.
He gives them something to look forward to in the dark. So, fueled by the promise of these dolphins, they push through the rest of the drive, which finally brings us to 3:30 a.m. and the reality of the beach.
The arrival.
Yeah, and it is completely pitch black. It is freezing cold. The wind is just punishing. They sit on the hood of the car to wait.
Just waiting.
Yeah, and Ben digs around in the backseat, finds a bottle of water that has been sitting there for 3 weeks, and offers it to Zara. She asks if it's safe to drink. He says probably, and she just drinks it anyway.
To pace out this agonizing wait in the dark, the author relies heavily on time markers. Phrases like, by the time, just as, or meanwhile.
Yeah, I noticed those little speed bumps in the text. By the time they arrived, it physically made the story feel slower, mimicking how cold and bored they were getting, sitting on that car hood.
Time markers are the connective tissue of professional pacing. They signal to the reader's brain that a significant, usually uncomfortable block of time is elapsing without having to describe every single shivering minute.
Okay, I have a major bone to pick with the author in this section, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The text explicitly describes their behavior on the hood of the car as spontaneous. But wait, isn't the author just using a thesaurus to avoid repeating the word impulsive? Because earlier we firmly established this trip was impulsive. Now it's spontaneous. Aren't those just interchangeable synonyms for doing something unplanned?
Honestly, I had the exact same thought on my first read. But if you look closely at how the text defines the actions in this scene, the author is drawing a razor-thin, highly deliberate psychological line between those two concepts.
Okay, walk me through that, because to me, jumping in a car with no gas and drinking old water both just sound like bad planning.
Think about the energy required for each action. Impulsive, as we saw in the apartment, is the catalyst. It is the friction.
Right.
Running out the door with no warm clothes and low gas requires a chaotic, ungrounded energy to break the inertia of a boring night. Spontaneous, however, requires zero friction.
Zero friction.
Yeah, the text frames spontaneity as the act of completely yielding to the present moment without resistance.
Sitting quietly in the freezing wind without complaining about the cold.
Exactly. Accepting a bizarre 3-week-old bottle of water simply because it is offered and trusting that it will be fine. Impulsivity got them out the door, but spontaneity is the emotional tool that allows them to actually sit in the discomfort of their bad planning and find peace in it.
So impulsivity is the spark, and spontaneity is the emotional fuel that keeps them from getting angry at each other when the reality of a 3 a.m. beach is actually kind of miserable.
Exactly.
That is a brilliant distinction, and it perfectly sets up the climax of the entire journey. It is 5:43 a.m. The sky slowly begins to change. The dark turns to orange, then to gold, then to this blinding white.
The sunrise.
Yeah, by the time the sun is fully over the water, they have been sitting on that freezing metal hood for over 2 hours. And here is the absolute kicker of the whole story.
The dolphins.
No dolphins appear, not a single one. And the text simply notes, that was okay.
It is an incredibly striking image to end on. And the text highlights a specific vocabulary word here to anchor the meaning. Horizon.
The literal line where the sky meets the sea, the thing they've been staring at for 2 hours.
Yes, the physical horizon.
Right, yeah.
But in a narrative framework, the horizon is almost always doing double duty. Figuratively, a horizon represents the edge of our current understanding. It represents new, unwritten possibilities. Huh. Watching the literal horizon brighten after surviving a completely sleepless, impulsive, freezing night embodies both definitions at once. They're watching a new day begin, but they are also experiencing a massive shift in their own personal horizons.
Which leads directly into what the source calls resolution language. The author starts using phrases like looking back or in the end. And the narrator uses this retrospective lens to drop a philosophical takeaway that honestly made me put the text down and just stare at the wall for a minute.
You're talking about the line about expectations.
Yes. The text concludes by saying, unplanned things sometimes matter more than the planned ones because you didn't have time to manage your expectations.
It's so good.
If we really unpack that, it explains the entire human desire for spontaneity. Think about a planned vacation. You book the hotel months in advance, you build a rigid itinerary, you pack a cooler, you bring expensive binoculars.
You build a massive architecture of expectation.
Yes. And if reality deviates from that architecture even slightly, the experience is categorized as a failure.
Exactly. If they had planned this beach trip for 3 months, and Ray, the gas station attendant, promised them dolphins, and then the dolphins didn't show up.
The drive home would be miserable. They would feel totally cheated.
But because the trip was born out of a sudden impulse?
Because they had zero time to construct a fantasy of how the morning should go, the simple biological fact that the sun came up at all was entirely enough to make it the best night of their lives.
Exactly.
The lack of dolphins couldn't ruin the trip because the trip had no rules to break. That was okay.
And that profound realization is the ultimate triumph of narrative tenses. If we zoom all the way out and look at the blueprint of this story, we see that tenses don't just tell us a sequence of events.
Right.
They don't just say what happened. They organize the timeline, the build-up, the background, the layered chaos, the long durations, so that we, the readers, can eventually understand what it meant.
We wouldn't have felt the massive, peaceful relief of that sunrise if the past perfect continuous hadn't made us feel the claustrophobic pressure of the apartment hours earlier.
Exactly. The grammar is the delivery system for the empathy. The resolution language at the end only carries emotional weight because the tenses meticulously built the scaffolding to support it.
To quickly recap this incredible arc, we started in a stagnant room, feeling the friction build through the past perfect continuous. We rode an impulsive, kinetic wave out the door, anchored in character history by the past perfect. We drifted through the liminal, hypnotic space of a dark highway, painted by the past continuous. And finally, we watched the sun break over the horizon, realizing the profound psychological difference between an impulse and true spontaneity.
It serves as a beautiful reminder that grammar is not a sterile science. Tenses are the actual lenses through which we project our humanity onto the world.
They really are.
They are the tools we use to frame our messy memories and make them legible to the people we love.
They are how we make sense of our own lives. Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. I want you to think about a cherished, entirely spontaneous memory of your own.
Ooh, I like this.
Maybe it was a random road trip that went off the rails, or maybe it was just a strange conversation with a stranger in a diner that lasted until dawn. Think about how you naturally tell that specific story to your friends.
Pay close attention to the grammar.
Exactly. If you pay close attention to the tenses you instinctively reach for when you tell it, where you naturally pause to build the background scenery, where you suddenly smash cut to the past to explain your mindset, you might just discover exactly which part of that memory holds the deepest emotional truth for you.
The architecture of the emotion is always hiding right there in the grammar.
It really is. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll catch you next time.